First of all, a very warm welcome to each one of you here this evening. We're absolutely delighted with the crowd that's showing up and that. I suppose I could begin with, I'm going to read a most beautiful article entitled A Little Bit of Heaven. And it goes, the opening lines is this: I've often wondered what heaven will be like, and earnestly wish that it would somehow resemble the Rosemount of my childhood. Later I will tell you the author, because she may be sitting beside you, behind you, before you, but she's somewhere here in this room. And the reason I'm quoting this is that it's an introduction to what we're calling a historical and cultural evening, where we'll take a magical, historical and cultural journey down memory lane, to our childhood, to our school days, and to the times past in Rosemount. And we started off with Pádraig Brown had set a scene for us with his running slideshow of a collage of photographs from earlier times up to our present day. And this is going to continue now with Father Jimmy. And recently, and there was an excellent article or interview with him by Adrian Cusick in the Westmeath papers. There were two different newspapers, the Westmeath Independent and the Westmeath Examiner. And it was the same title, or the very same story in the two of them, except for the headings. In one of the papers the heading was Steeped in History, and the other was I'm back among my own. Steeped in history, I'm back among my own, for the very same article on that. And for me, it really sums up Father Jimmy, so it does. He's steeped in history, he's back among his own, here now in Moat, and especially back here in Rosemount. And we're delighted to welcome him to say a few words about Rosemount in olden times.
Good night to you all, and good to be here. This mightn't be exactly the menu that John had predicted, but it's good to be here. First of all, to remind you that local history is our history, and there's a power in local history. And the history of our country is the local history writ large. So we all have our, I mean, you take the great writers, all their writing was about the local. Joyce wrote about the local thing, Cavender, Francis Ledwell, Mark Twain, Steinbeck, William Kane, whom we remember tonight, who lived from 1851 to 1921. He ran two schools. He wrote about emigration and love, national issues. He breathed into the dry bones of the past some life of exile, deportation. He is the sort of the reporter and the storyteller of those times. It was the beginning of cultural nationalism. You had the Land League, he wrote about that, Home Rule. We had also outside that the Abbey Theatre, economic refugees. The country, all that led in its own way to 1916. So our history here, our local history is defined by many things. It's the history of families here. The environment contributes to that history. The buildings, the names of places, you know, if we analyse them, they're full of our history. Take a place I know well, Coolator. It really means the back of the bleaching ground. The bleach, there was a lot of flax growing here, and the front of it here was the bleaching area as you look up the hill because the sun shone there. Coolator was the back of it. Lara was the half fort. Lisnagree, the fort of the cattle. You know, it tells you something about that there. Rosemount itself, of course, it's 1773 when Owen McGagan built that house, and then in 1793 the bishop going through wrote in his diary, I was in Rosemount last night. That was the first time we have a written reference to Rosemount as the name of the place. It's not an official townland, but it became so by common usage. Kilcumrera, every time I see it, it seems to be spelled badly. But it means kill, the church, crimper of the priest or monk, Rera, we have this, we don't know who this monk was. It goes back again, the monastic site here goes back to the 7th or 8th century. So there's history there, and the McGagans added to that history, and all those who were buried there, there's a story there. There are many stories there in that. So we read much in that story. Monuments, they enshrine our history. That monastic site, Lara Castle, our Rosemont House, it was a Georgian house. The Georgian houses were those, it was built in 1773, but those Georgian houses were built between 1714 and about 1830. They were built in the period of the kings, those kings, but a lot of houses were Georgian houses. They varied in style, but they had much the same in terms of appearance. America had a lot of Georgian houses. But the Mass Rocks, they're part of our story, and we have celebrated the life that was there and the times that were there. The Stiles, the Mass Paths that were there, that are nearly gone, but I remember them there, a lot of them. They were used as school paths as well. The Holy Hills, Nacosta, we're going up there on Saturday to the Bronze Age burial ground. Late Bronze Age, where we know there are 44 buried there. And we look at that and the location of those and the story of those people. There were natural features like the Eskers. And the Eskers, of course, added a lot to the history of the place. We may have the main Dublin-Galway road, just going up by Seamus Daly's all along there. That was the Esker, that followed the Esker because it was the big sand hill. They were the winding sand hills created about 10,000 years ago with the climate change and the melting of the ice. And you can see that affects here. You have the Esker all along here. The church and the school, that site that was given, that's on the spur of an Esker, and that explains why it's lovely sandy soil there. Beautiful. Just here where Mrs. Kelly lives, there was a sand pit there in the Esker. I remember the remains of that. I don't remember anymore. Along by the football pitch, the Esker went across there, went across by the pump, and you can see the remains of it on the left. There was a sand pit there as well. So and if you go up towards Fonzie Forest, you're walking on an Esker. You're very conscious. You're on top of this. They contributed a lot to it. And if you look up at the hill, you see that craggy face on it, because the ice came across the other direction and it left it rough. It smoothed the back of it as it came along. And you have that. Then you have the forts. They were dwelling places, farming dwelling places. We don't know there are one or more families in them. There's a lot of them just at the back of the hill. As you look down, you can see 3 or 4. In different places, there were about 40,000 that we have in the country. Again, we were up to about 1,200. They were part of our livelihood, part of how we live, because the Celts did not build towns as such at all. The monasteries were the nearest thing we have to towns. The monastic site there at Kill, that was built there on an Esker, beside an Esker, and quite an interesting feature, and built beside, of course, on the river there. And then we had the bogs, and that contributed to the livelihood of the people. We can tell the story of people who worked and lived and got their fuel from the bog. And the bog there was always bogs in your Eskers. They were another feature of that time. And then we had the railway, of course, opened 15th of August 1852, and that changed life in the area as well. And of course, it had been built during famine times, and lots of our people got work there. The McGagans had a great influence here. The McGagans originated with Niall of the Nine Hostages. They were one of the clans in Ireland. They were a very strong clan. They fought like the Foxes and the Magaulies and those against the Normans. And they owned an area here from I suppose, from Dura to Ushna and from Moat to Turns Pass. That would roughly be their area. There were a lot of families out of the McGagans in it. They were quite powerful and fought against the Cromwellians really. When Cromwell made that settlement in 1653, he really destroyed the power of the McGagans. They had to go abroad. they had them in Coolatour, they were in Suntown, they were in Lara. The big castle there was from their earlier powerhouses, and they were quite wealthy then, but they had an influence on us. Again, it was through them we got the site of the church and the school. When Owen married a Macaulay, they had a daughter, Mary Bridget, and she married Richard Nagle, who gave us that site for the church and the school. So we a very tangible connection with that family. And of course, like tonight, we have the old photographs which tell the story in the faces of those people that we saw there. So it raises an awareness of the local. Then we had the Irish Folklore Commission, and I remember finding in UCD one time, and I didn't know they were there. That was done 1937-39, and schools were invited to send in stories that would about the folk life of the place. And Master Hickey organised it here. We have 3 people here who wrote in their stories, and we have that in their own writing, in their own copies of their handwriting, what they sent in. Then of course we have the GA in 1924, a very powerful association, around which the community has sort of built its reputation in many ways. We had our colours and our flags and our great days and our disappointments, but you know, it was something that kept us together. Out of that you had the social initiative that you have, the most recent one, you had drama, Feroia, score, all those came out of that association. It was a very Gaelic association in many ways. Interesting thing, you had another man, John Keegan. John was born in Lara in 1813. And his father fell in ill health. He was born near Lara Castle. They moved into Moat, and John joined the Ordnance Survey. He rode to school in Hursley first, and then he went down to Ballyman, joined the Ordnance Survey in 1837. And when he was on his tours, he was down in the Waterford, down that area, the night of the big wind, the 6th of January 1839. John writes about home, about the terrible damage done down there to boats and houses and all. He came back to Moat and discovered his own house was burned down. And a lot of his books. He lived there between where Peter McCormick's garage was, Spring Lane, and the church. All of it was burnt down. A lot of other areas were burned down too. But people like that recorded stories, you know, that are part of our history, because apparently the damage of this area was quite severe. You have a minor character, maybe like Bill Kennedy. None of you might remember Bill. Bill, I'm told, played football with Rosemount. Bill would cycle to Croke Park regularly. He always would cycle to the Munster final. And I remember the story that Bill cycled to Rome the year that Father Tom was ordained, 1950. And when Bill was ill, dying, I used to go visit him. I said, Bill, you cycled to Rome the whole year. It was a whole year. He said, I did. I said, when did you go? I went when I had the turf coat and I was back for making the hay. And I said, how long did that take? He said, as far as I remember, 16 days going out, and the wind was only just coming back. It took 17 coming back. I said, where did you stay? Mrs. Green, he said. What's that? The back of the ditch. And I said, what do you do for language? I said, I don't need 2 words, he said. And what were they? I said, okay. You can imagine him with having to get French money and Italian money, and, you know, he must have come back terrible himself, because the bike was like a game of wheels, those old bikes, you know, and he would have no properly equipped person, something that picks a puncture, you know. But we have people like that who created the face and the memories of the place, which is worth remembering, and maybe we've write people like that up in a more definite way. There's lots of other people here we could write up, you know. Listen, thank you all. Congratulations to Rosemary.